Hey, thanks for checking out Press Pause with Vig Villain. I'm Jeff. The villain is in Panama searching for rare Scandinavian Tupperware. Now, I know normally when he's here, the channel is all about the best spaghetti dishes to eat before skydiving, but today we're going to talk about video game news. Let's get right into it. Microsoft continues tinkering with Game Pass. They are shortening the $1 trial from a month to 14 days for both Game Pass PC and Game Pass Ultimate. I don't think it's any coincidence that this is happening just before Starfield's big release in early September. Obviously, Microsoft is going to want to try and move as many people into Game Pass with this release, as well as what is hopefully a pretty stacked fall for them. We'll see how that turns out. I don't know that shortening the trial will really matter that much. I think people are either in or out. I do think by not giving you a full month, it's much more likely if Starfield gets its hooked into you, you're not going to be done in 14 days. So a smart move from them as far as trying to get people onto the full system. You know, I think they do have a pretty stacked lineup for Game Pass, so I think they want to capitalize on that. You know, at the end of August, we've got Sea of Stars, we've got Lies of P also in September, as well as Payday 3. You've got Forza Motorsport and Cities Skyline in October, Persona 5 Tactica in November, Age of Empires 4 is still TBD, I believe. You've also got some of the games they announced that sort of don't have dates yet. I've talked before on this channel about like Arabin, Shadow Legacy, Football Manager 2024. Jusant is a good looking one, the climbing game they revealed at the last Xbox showcase, as well as most likely Stalker 2, though it's likely that one gets delayed further, in my opinion. We're also still waiting on Warhammer 40k Darktide to make the jump from simply PC over to console. And then a ton of other smaller indie games and AA's that I didn't mention. So I think we're seeing Game Pass really start to gear up. I think really though, even with even with Starfield and Forza, some of these other games launching in this fall, I really do think 2024 is going to be the make or break. I see a lot of pressure going on to Starfield, and no doubt, if Starfield's a miss, Xbox is, at least from a hardcore gamer perspective, their PR is going to be just in tatters. Like, they're going to be a ship adrift at sea with a broken mast, no oars. I don't know where I'm going with this metaphor. My point is, yeah, Starfield can't miss for the short term. But for long-term confidence in Xbox, I do think after a very slow start to this generation, an absolutely barren wasteland of 2022, and even the first half of this year, we haven't really seen a ton of big titles, especially because Redfall missed. Obviously, Hi-Fi Rush was a lot of fun. I did roll credits on that one. Really enjoyed it. But Starfield is just one game. Motorsport is niche, even though it's going to probably be big. Those racing games never hold the zeitgeist in the same way that action-adventure, shooters, RPGs do. So I think 2024 is really going to be the banner year that we have to look for to see how Xbox capitalizes on Game Pass. I think the pricing changes they're making, I think the shortening of the trial, I think the way they're starting to communicate and roll some of this out indicates they're feeling pretty confident. But I don't think we're going to know until next summer how it's really going for them. All right, so we've got some interesting news out of Take-Two during their latest earnings call regarding the first quarter of fiscal year 2024, which would end in the coming March. Now, they go over their net bookings, which is what they call their net sales, sitting at $1.2 billion for the quarter. They're looking at $5.45 to $5.55 billion for the entire fiscal year. Looking into the future beyond that, though, we get to something that I think is actually interesting. Take-Two CEO and Chairman Strauss Zelnick said in a statement, "We remain confident that we are positioning our business for a significant inflection point in fiscal 2025, which we believe will include new record levels of operating performance." I think that's kind of showing that they're looking for a big game to drop in fiscal year 2025, which, like I said, this current year is going to end in March. So we're talking April to March, April 24 to March 25. I think that's going to be the window for GTA 6. So I think we're getting very close. I doubt they're going to drop that in March. I don't think that's a springtime game. I think that's either good. I don't think it's a spring 25 game. I think we're looking at this game launching in 24, which is likely going to be one of the biggest games in the world of all time. I mean, you look at, they announced on this earnings call 185 million copies sold now of GTA 5. I mean, that is just astronomical, and it kind of shows you why they continue to release that game on multiple platforms again and again. However, it's definitely time for GTA 6. With that in mind, let's stick with Take-Two and Strauss Zelnick for this next bit, because he did have a conversation with IGN ahead of the earnings call. And he made a few interesting points, kind of talking about some things in the industry. IGN had pushed him on backwards compatibility. There's been a lot of talk on whether the Switch 2, the Super Switch, if you will, is going to have backwards compatibility. Take-Two Zelnick seems fairly confident he thinks that would happen. He thinks it's a benefit to consumers, and he said he would be surprised if platforms didn't offer that with an upgrade that is sort of mid-cycle. However, I'm not certain it's a must-have. I don't know. I get it. I understand why developers maybe don't think there needs to be a must-have there, especially if we're talking about really big leaps in technology where you can't easily transfer them over. But I don't think that's the case what we're going to see with the Switch. It obviously wasn't the case that we saw with the PS5 or the Xbox Series, where they were both able to handle backwards compatibility. I think more and more, gone are the days of not needing backwards compatibility. We're not making these generational leaps with consoles anymore. This isn't, the leap to 3D graphics here. So I do think backwards compatibility is likely going to be needed. There has been some grumbling, apparently, from developers on, hoping it wasn't backwards compatible because it just means they have to, compete against the older library, which, while true, from the consumer side, good. Like, I don't care. I don't care if it's harder for you to sell the product. It just means you have to make a better product. Strauss Zelnick also touched on the kerfuffle, if you will, with Red Dead Redemption, saying he believes the pricing is commercially accurate. A lot of people online, and I think probably in general, are a little bit flabbergasted by the $50 price point, considering it's missing multiplayer. And on top of that, there's still no PC release announced for this game. Look, when IGN pressed him on this, he stuck to his guns and said he thinks the pricing is commercially viable. He also said that Undead Nightmare, and this is quoting, was a great standalone game in its own right when it was originally released, so we feel like it's a great bundle for the first time and certainly a great value for consumers. I just want to point out, this is not the first time these games have been bundled together. The Game of the Year edition has been available for years. Undead Nightmare has been bundled with Red Dead. You can, in fact, find it on Amazon right now for $28, $29 for Xbox. Pop it into your machine and play it 4K, 30 FPS. You're getting everything they're wanting to charge you $50 for, except you're also getting multiplayer. IGN also asked Zelnick about a potential PC release. He left it vague, said he leaves those sort of announcements up to developers, which, who knows? I have very little hope now at this point we're ever going to see that game on PC. It'll probably come like years down the road when they're announcing like Red Dead Redemption 3. That's right, I'm still hoping for Red Dead Redemption 3. Can't a man have a shred of hope in this cruel, cruel world? All right, speaking of hope, Valve begins selling refurbished Steam Decks for around 20% off. I've got the article here from Engadget. Valve talks about putting these refurbished systems out. They have all three tiers in stock. They could have minor cosmetic blemishes, they state, but we're talking about taking the top line one at $649 down to $519, and the $399 base model down to $319. Valve is saying they're thoroughly testing this stuff, whether it's buttons, screen, audio, all of it. Full factory reset, update, and it comes with 1-year warranty, so that's pretty good. For me, that pricing is starting to get down where I want to see it. If you watch this channel, I've held off on handheld gaming beyond the Nintendo, mainly because I've got my phone. Don't you people have phones? I know. But I've got my phone, I have a backbone, and what I like about it is I can remote play, and then I do use like Apple Arcade and purchase a few mobile games that are honestly great experiences. I understand a lot of people want, PC or console quality games that are native and not running on cloud, so that's why this handheld is so attractive. But for me, these are early iterations of handheld PCs. I don't think they're there yet. At the price point, I'd rather stick with either my laptop, my Switch, or my phone. But as I see like the refurbished units coming out and the price drop, $319 starts to get tempting. But personally, I think I'm going to hold out for the second or third generation of these handheld PCs before I think it's worth making the leap. I don't think they're there yet. When you look at battery life, you look at thermals, and longevity as far as like being a supported system. I don't know if they're there yet, personally, but I think this is a good sign. One thing I want to tack on here. Do you like to gamble? If so, why not buy a refurbished Steam Deck from GameStop? Steam Deck tagged something here. Also, GameStop is making refurbished Steam Decks available in select stores starting today. Please note that those units are refurbished at GameStop facilities and will come with their own warranty. That's right. If you really want to throw your money down Vegas style and take a huge gamble, you can let the good folks at GameStop refurbish your Steam Deck. Great news out of QuakeCon. id has released a Quake 2 remaster. It's on Game Pass now. It comes with mission packs, the PC and N64 version, as well as it looks like a new mission designed by Machine Games, the team behind the modern Wolfensteins. I think the interesting thing here is we've already seen the Quake 1 remaster. We're likely going to see a Quake 3 remaster down the line, and I wonder if this is all gearing up for a modern Quake. We don't know what it is making. Last we heard from them, they did speak about how the current Doom arc is finished. Not that they're leaving Doom alone, but it is likely they're going to try something else, and it's looking like they're setting it up to roll out a modern Quake, which would be very cool just based on what they did with Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. I'd love to see a shooter in that style with the Quake aesthetic. So, please. Okay, over here on Pure Xbox, we see that EA is closing the servers for 3 more Xbox 360 titles this year. That is going to be Crysis 3, Dante's Inferno, and Dead Space 2. It's going to happen in September and December, respectively, for these titles. Look, the single player will likely remain purchasable and playable offline. It's just removing multiplayer is what it seems to be. It's still a bummer to see these old games go, but as companies wrestle with wanting to move us into newer games and not pay for old server space, it's hard to see what forces them to do this. Which I think goes to what I've spoken about last month on the importance of game preservation. It'd be great if these companies or the ESA or somebody could work out some sort of program that kept these things alive in some format, right? Multiplayer is such an important part of some of these games. And obviously, I don't think the multiplayer was a big part of, say, Dante's Inferno or Dead Space 2. But, when they talk about shutting down some of these multiplayer for Battlefields, it just seems like, man, there's got to be some way to preserve it. I'm not a smart enough person to know how to do that, but I would love to see somebody come up with a solution here. So this comes from Automaton, a Japanese gaming-focused website. Nintendo's registered a whole bunch of patents, primarily around Tears of the Kingdom mechanics, about 32 patents over the last month and a half. These are things from gripping ledges to the Ultra Hand infuse abilities to the way Link rides on moving objects, or the way he can't select an object he's standing on. These patents are honestly egregious. These are simple mechanics. Nintendo didn't invent moving an item or connecting them together. They didn't invent players riding on top of moving vehicles. They didn't invent gripping ledges. This just goes to show these companies are patenting mechanics when they really shouldn't, right? We're all aware of the famous ones like BioWare patenting the dialogue wheel from Mass Effect and Dragon Age, which was an awesome development that I would have loved to see other studios and other game makers play with and iterate on, right? Bandai Namco famously patented using mini games and loading screens, something I think we'd all have loved to have seen. Warner Brothers fought really hard and made a bunch of little adjustments until they were finally able to patent the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. And the point is not always that these patents get passed. It's that they're trying to pass them. But when they do get passed, just the threat of knowing it's patent will keep some game developers from messing with these systems, when the best thing for the industry, for the art form, for players, is that game developers are free to iterate on mechanics. Much like with board games, you cannot copyright or patent board game mechanics. You can patent logos, design, color systems, the artwork and aesthetics around a board game. You can definitely patent that, right? But you can't patent rolling 3 die to determine hit points. You can't patent rolling 1 die to, how many spaces you move. You can't patent draw a card, because these are mechanics in games that people can iterate on, they can take, they can adjust, and really that needs to be the case for gaming. And this is just another example, because these companies do these patents all the time, and I don't think game mechanics should be patentable. I don't know how to say the word. Patentable? Patentable. You just say it for me. Pretend I'm saying it. They shouldn't be able to patent this stuff, man. It's wild. Game development needs to be free to explore this stuff, and the idea that Nintendo would even try is very disappointing. So Nintendo, I'm sorry, coming hot off Tears of the Kingdom. I know people are liking Pikmin 4 or whatever, but you're getting a thumbs down from me this week. All right, big thumbs down, and that's it. That's everything I've got. I should go.